Imagine you could live a life of peace, happiness, and contentment until the day you died. Oh, did we mention that your life has to end at 30? That's the premise of Logan's Run, the 1976 movie that has influenced the genre of science fiction ever since. Its Orwellian themes of wising up and disrupting the status quo in a post-apocalyptic dystopia, or utopia depending on where you're standing, can be seen in everything from Ridley Scott's Blade Runner to Steven Spielberg's Minority Report to the Hunger Games movies. Hell, the tagline of Minority Report was even "Everybody Runs." Even WALL-E and Snowpiercer owe a debt of gratitude to Logan. Logan's Run is not, as you might have guessed incorrectly, about Wolverine running a marathon, or really anyone named Logan jogging. The film, based on the 1967 book by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson, takes place in the year 2274, when humanity has confined itself to a dome-covered city where all the people's needs are met in a hedonistic society. Only problem is the shortened lifespan. To keep track of this, every human is born with a jewel built into the palm of their hand known as a time clock that turns different colors depending on how old they are. Humans aren't born in wombs, but bred in nurseries, so that concepts of family are unknown to these people, kind of like the Matrix. When you reach 30, you can attempt renewal on Carousel, a ceremony where you explode. These scenes were some of the most technically complex to film in a movie to that point, and the wires suspending the actors often got tangled. Green means you're still young, while a flashing red indicates that you must be terminated by a Sandman, the individuals in this dystopia responsible for killing anyone 30 or over who tries to run. And while this is supposed to be the far-flung future, it's the 70s version of the far-flung future, sort of a groovy futurism, if you will. All the hairstyles and costumes are what people in the era of disco thought the future might look like. So accurate. Michael York plays a Sandman named Logan 5, who becomes disenfranchised by the system and decides to run. At his side is Jessica 6, played by Jenny Agutter. If Logan looks familiar, he should, because he's Basil Exposition from the Austin Powers franchise. However, this now iconic sci-fi feature may never have gotten made if not for the success of two other movies. Those were Soylent Green, you know, the one where they turn old people into food. The other was Michael Crichton's Westworld, which inspired the current HBO series. The box office returns for both were enough to convince MGM to bankroll the film. The studio was the driving financial force behind all three. Nevertheless, it almost got made in 1969 with Robert Redford in the lead. By the movie's end, Logan and Jessica convince the people of the city that they don't have to die at 30. As the seals of the domes open, the citizens make their way outside for the first time and see the old man, living proof that you don't have to die so early. It's me, I'm the old man. Had some of the actors actually lived in this world, they would be pretty scared, as Michael York was 30 at the time of filming, while Fawcett was 29. Jenny Agutter would have been safer. She was only 23 at the time. As the people gather around the old man, one person, played by Adam Weiss, sneakily put up the Vulcan salute for Live Long and Prosper. Weiss was an extra hired by his mother, who was a talent agent and had no idea that his Star Trek sign had made it into the finished movie until years later. He once noted, "I was simply wanting to find a way to locate myself in the crowd. And I didn't do it long, I thought. I feared it would get noticed and end up on the cutting room floor, but it made it to the final print. I had forgotten about this until a friend of mine from back then called me and said the salute had made the internet." At the box office, Logan's Run was a moderate success, making $25 million against a $9 million budget. This inspired a short-lived TV series in 1977, the same year as the release of the first Star Wars movie, which, as I'm sure you know, would become the highest-grossing movie ever up until that point and reignite America's fascination with science fiction. However, since the TV show aired on CBS a few months after Star Wars had become a major hit, many wrongly assumed that it was made as a result of George Lucas's success and the newly forged interest in sci-fi. The same year Marvel published 7 issues of a comic based on the movie with writer and artist George Perez. The co-author of the original novel, William F. Nolan, was reportedly unhappy with the film and was hoping for a better shot at the source material with a sequel that never happened. Instead, he got the series, which pissed him off to no end. However, he did write several follow-ups over the next few years, such as Logan's World, Logan's Search, and Logan's Return. Since the 1990s, a remake of the film has languished in development hell at Warner Brothers. The idea was to make a more faithful adaptation of the book, whose elements of sky gypsies and Crazy Horse Mountain were left out of the 1976 version. What those terms mean, we have no idea. So far, actors from Leonardo DiCaprio to Ryan Gosling have been hopefuls for the lead role over the years. Despite the film's inability to be remade, its influence has been felt all over Hollywood. Logan's fingerprints are on much of science fiction made today, whether you realize it or not. Just take a look at the last couple of years. Dan Harmon's Community episode about the Meow Meow Beans rating system, app development, and condiments is heavily inspired by the dystopian inequality and caste-like rules of Logan's Run, while Andrew Nichols' In Time plays around with Logan's concept of never growing old, taking place in a world where time is the new currency. Even the way to tell how long you have to live is built into a clock in someone's wrist. Then you got the Hunger Games, which take place in a future where children are chosen to kill one another for an annual Capitol Run ceremony in the name of peace. Like Renewal in Logan's Run, however, the tribute ceremony and resulting Hunger Games are revealed to be shams meant to keep people obedient and docile. The society of Pan Am is so set in its ways, like that of the domed cities, that it's never stopped to consider that a better way of life out there exists. Blade Runner, while influential in its own right, is not as cynical as the noir it attempts to emulate, aside from the fact that it's got the word run in its title. It's also about standing up to a corrupted system, one that hunts replicants. Having lived as a Blade Runner all his adult life, Harrison Ford's Rick Deckard is a fixture of the system, an immovable part of the officers who retire androids. The fact that he can leave with Sean Young's Rachel at the end is a more optimistic conclusion that proves that one can see humanity in a replicant as well as escape the dreary and rain-soaked streets of a dystopian Los Angeles. In the world of Minority Report, the existence of the precogs means the government gets to decide who's guilty and who isn't before a crime has even been committed. Similar to the world of Logan's Run, where the powers that be decides who lives and who dies, Spielberg's adaptation of Philip K. Dick's classic story takes away the power of the individual and places it in the hands of the institution. The film's elements of consumerism and humanly pleasures mirror those of the domed city. And speaking of, not even kids' movies are immune to Logan's influence. Like we said, Pixar's WALL-E contains traces of the film in the form of the Axiom's overweight passengers. Flying around in hover chairs, humanity has slowed to a completely hedonistic and synthetic society. All of their needs are taken care of when they should really be rebuilding the Earth. WALL-E's discovery of the last living plant is a parallel of Logan and Jessica breaking out of the city and seeing the sun for the first time, realizing the natural Earth is still habitable. They realize that not only can life exist outside of the technological world they've known for so long, but that a person can become more than what they're confined to. The Axiom's autopilot refuses to return to Earth and tries to destroy the plant, thus ensuring the continuation of humanity's decline, just like Logan's fellow Sandman Francis Seven, played by Richard Jordan, who, even when outside the Dome City, still believes in the antiquated ideas of the time clocks and renewal. And finally, you got Snowpiercer, an unusual dystopian action movie with a familiar premise. Like the citizens of the Dome City in Logan's Run, the people on the Snowpiercer were all forced to live in one habitat due to global factors that harm the planet. The entire population at the back of the train is taught that there is nothing more than their pitiable existence, and armed individuals are tasked with keeping them that way, killing them if they try to escape. When they rebel, however, they come to see that everyone on the train could live lives of equality and comfort. By the film's end, we learn that life is able to be sustained outside of the amenities of the train. Like Logan's Run, it depicts the citizens of a sheltered society leaving the confines of their comforting world. The destruction of the domed city and the derailment of the train are both metaphors for overthrowing the broken systems and starting anew. Plus, you know your movie is a true classic when Family Guy parodies it. No matter how you spin it, Logan's Run is a true sci-fi classic that has impacted the genre for more than 40 years. Whether it gets a remake or not, its influence will live on for the rest of time. So what are your thoughts? Are you a fan of the original who'd like to see a remake? Who would you like to direct and star in one? Comment below. And thank you for watching.